all your charms whenever I want you. All I have to do is dream. Dream, dream, dream when I feel blue in the night, and I need you to hold me tight whenever I want you. All I have to do is dream. I can make you mine, taste your lips of wine, anytime, night or day. Only trouble is, gee whiz, I'm dreaming my life away. I need you so that I could die. I love you so, and that is why whenever I want you, all I have to do is dream. Dream, 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 dream. I can make you mine, taste your lips of wine, anytime, night or day. Only trouble is, gee whiz, I'm dreaming my life away. I need you so that I could die. I love you so, and that is why whenever I want you, all I have to do is dream. Dream, 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 dream.
Spring was never waiting for us, girl. It ran one step ahead as we followed in the dance. Between the parted pages, and were pressed in love's hot-fevered iron like a striped pair of pants. This park is melting in the dark, all the sweet green icing flowing down. Someone left the cake out in the rain. I don't think that I can take it, 'cause it took so long to bake it, and I'll never have that recipe again. Oh no. I recall the yellow cotton dress foaming like a wave on the ground around your knees. The birds like tender babies in your hands, and the old men playing checkers by the trees. This park is melting in the dark, all the sweet green icing flowing down. Someone left the cake out in the rain. I don't think that I can take it, 'cause it took so long to bake it, and I'll never have the recipe again. Oh no. there will be another dream for me. Someone will bring it. I will drink the wine while it is warm and never let you catch me looking at the sun. And after all the loves of my life, after all the loves of my life, you'll still be the one. I will take my life into my hands and I will use it. I will win the worship in their eyes and I will lose you. I will have the things that I desire and my passion flow like rivers through the sky. And after all the loves of my life, oh, after all the loves of my life, I'll be thinking and wondering why. This park is melting in the dark. All the sweet green icing flowing down. Someone left the cake out in the rain. I don't think that I can take it, 'cause it took so long to bake it, and I'll never have that recipe again.
Tangible and visible. Jimmy Webb wrote that song, and everything he wrote about he had seen in the park in Los Angeles. Paul loved this song, and it was one of the many he would sing to his love, Margaret. Family and friends, we've come together this morning to celebrate the amazing life of Paul William Jamieson. Jamo to his mates, a down-to-earth, genuine, selfless man, a creative, gregarious, beautiful man who mixed easily with everyone he met, a man who loved his family deeply and whose antics will never be forgotten. On behalf of his beloved wife of 56 years, Margaret, his cherished children, Nicole and Rob, Murray and Melissa, Matthew and Helen, his adored grandchildren, Sam, Andrew, Jacob, Josh, Bree, Beth, Olivia, Loxton, Ellie, and Hamish, and adored great-grandchildren, Quinn and Matilda. I welcome you all and thank you sincerely for being here with them today. I also welcome all those people who are watching online this morning, having been unable to join us here in the chapel. My name is Denise Wotherspoon, and along with Peter and the staff from Parkside Funerals, I am honoured to be leading this celebration of Paul's life, to help you all say farewell to him in a loving and meaningful way. At the conclusion of the service, the family warmly invite you to stay here to share refreshments, share your stories of Paul, and support one another. Paul would be wanting your stories to be loud, to be funny, and, like his own character, to be as animated as possible. So keep that in mind. You are his closest family and friends, and you all have one thing in common. Your lives have been touched by the incredible good fortune of having known him. Today, we stop the rush of life, we'll pause for a while and reflect. Our service this morning has many purposes. Of course, it is for the reverent farewell of a much-loved husband, father, father-in-law, pop, grandpop, brother, uncle, and friend. But it also recognises the value of his life and confirms that life has ended. It also helps us all to face the reality of his death. Although we feel sadness, it is important to remember the good times and to know that grief is a natural emotion when we lose someone we love. And ultimately, remembering the good times will bring the smiles back again. When we think about it, none of us have very long on this earth. Life is fleeting. Paul's 80 years were lived with a love of life, a sense of fun, a touch of larrikinism even, a unique intelligence, and a gift for the creative. This morning we'll touch on points of his life that will have affected you all in different ways and will mean different things to each of you. They may evoke memories that you can take away from here and keep safe. Most importantly today, Paul would want you to remember that grief is a passage, not a place to stay. Grief is not a sign of weakness, nor a lack of faith. It is the price of love. Paul's story has been written by his daughter, Nicole, and I invite her to come forward now to share it with us. Thank you, Nicole.
Isn't it quiet? Good morning, everyone. We are here today to celebrate the life of Paul Jamieson. My name is Nicole and Paul is my dad. Mum and I, Murray and Matthew, so appreciate you joining us here today to pay tribute to Dad. I know that Dad was immensely grateful for each of his 80 years, for his loving family, and for his authentic and supportive friends, some whom have passed before him, many of whom are either here today or joining us by live stream. I'd like to specifically acknowledge Dad's sisters, Julie, Wendy and Robin, and his brother David, and my son Jacob, who couldn't be with us today, but who send their love and prayers. Dad grew up in a culture and a family where if you loved someone, you gave them a nickname. We all had nicknames, proudly given to us by our dad. I was Minnie, short for Minnie the Moocher. It was not until recently that I actually sought to find the lyrics of this song by Cab Calloway, and I have to say I have mixed feelings. Folks, here's a story about Minnie the Moocher. She was a red-hot hoochie coocher. She was the roughest, toughest frail, but Minnie had a heart as big as a whale. Hidey, 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 hi. And that was our dad. Paul was perky to his parents and younger siblings and Jamo to his friends and colleagues. He was Dad to us, Uncle Paul to his nieces and nephews, and Pop or Poppy Paul to his grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Despite the medical emergency that led to Dad's passing, our family are so privileged to have been present when he took his last breath. Mum and Matt on one side, Murray and I on the other holding his hands, and his sister Leslie at the end of the bed rubbing his legs. Our husbands and wives were also present, as were Murray's two daughters, Bree and Beth. He passed just after 10 p.m. on Tuesday the 7th of January from a ruptured aortic aneurysm. Paul William Jamieson was born at Crown Street Women's Hospital in Sydney on the 21st of December 1945, 4 months after the end of World War II, making Dad amongst the first of the generation known as the baby boomers. His parents, Josephine and William, were young, just 16 and 17. And when it was known they were expecting a baby, William's mother, Bertha, insisted they marry. It was a shotgun wedding, if you like, and with a large frame woman named Bertha holding the shotgun, I imagine they didn't have much choice in the matter. Dad held no illusions about the circumstances around his birth, but he would often joke about being the largest baby, 3 months premature, to ever be born. Paul was the eldest of 6 children. Robin was born 10 months after Dad, closely followed by Wendy and Julie. The 4 siblings grew up together until David arrived when Dad was 10, and Leslie 7 years later. It was a tough upbringing. The family didn't have much money, and like many fathers of that era, Will had a temper and was very hard on his kids. By all accounts, the 6 siblings were close growing up, and as the eldest, Paul often felt the need to protect his younger brothers and sisters, and he remained protective of his siblings into adulthood. Dad's sister Julie, or Lumpy as he called her, recalls a time when in early adolescence she wagged school and went with her friends to the beach. She was having such a good time that she overstayed, and by the time she returned to catch the bus home, it had left without her. She panicked. She jumped the train to Windsor, where Paul was working in a tyre shop. Without hesitation, he drove her home, which was over an hour in the opposite direction to where he was travelling that evening. He couldn't have his little sister get into trouble. By the time his brother David, or Swiv as he was known, was 12 years old, the Jamieson family had moved to a farm at Sackville on the Hawkesbury River. Here the kids were expected to work as hard, if not harder, than the adults. Dad bought him a motorbike so that he could escape when things got rough at home. David loved that bike and rode it like it was a part of his own body. Wendy, or the Fonz, recalls a time when Paul turned up at home with a dead snake that he'd run over in the back of his Falcon ute. His attempt to teach his younger siblings about the danger of snakes took a dangerous turn when he pulled out the snake and it wasn't dead. Needless to say, all assembled onlookers scattered. Dad attended Our Lady of Mount Carmel Primary School, where it was discovered he had a very high IQ. In fact, he was so intelligent that the Patrician brothers suggested he be sent to De La Salle College in Redfern for his high school years. He attended there until he was 15 years old. At one point, he was made prefect, but later lost his badge for bashing a group of boys who were picking on his mate. The brothers were very strict, but Dad lived by his truth, no matter the consequences. As a child, Paul was baptised and confirmed Catholic and was asked to be an altar boy for Father Purcell at St Vincent's Catholic Church. His mother and Nan were so proud they bought him the best altar boy outfit money could buy. Robin recalls how angelic he looked on Sunday mornings, a far cry from the Paul we all knew. He absolutely loved fishing. At aged 8 or 9, he'd get his fishing bag, worms, he'd dug out of his mum's garden, his rod, reel, sandwiches and a drink, and he'd catch the train to Circular Quay on his own and fish there all day. One day he came home as usual around 4:30 p.m. with a fishing hook stuck in his thumb. Apparently it had happened when he first arrived at the quay, but Dad didn't let that deter him from his day's fishing. He stayed and put up with the pain until he got home. Dad was very creative. As a child, he loved to draw, cartoons and caricatures mostly, and as an adult, he was occasionally moved to sketch a comical likeness of a friend or foe and present it to them. He loved poetry, a love I expect he acquired from watching his father and grandfather write and recite poetry in the streets and pubs of Sydney. He had a particular love of Australian bush poets. Henry Lawson's social comment and raw bush ballads spoke to his lived experiences, stories of real Aussies doing it tough. Interestingly, his favourite poem was by the American poet Rudyard Kipling. In his poem, If, Kipling takes on the voice of a father, advising his son on how to be a man. Dad's reading of the poem was to live a measured life, but a life of purpose. And a purposeful life it was. Dad worked in a number of places and professions throughout his life. His first job, at 16 years old, was a window dresser at Walton's. Walton's was an upmarket department store in Sydney, similar to Myer. His section manager reports that Paul was better dressed than him every day, dapper in his three-piece suit, tie, and the obligatory hat. In 1965, when he was 20 years old, Paul was conscripted to the Australian Army. There he completed his basic training and national service, but when it was time for him to go to Vietnam, his father stepped in and used a story about his own failing health and needing help on the farm to getting exempt. Paul was furious, but later said it was the kindest and wisest thing his father had ever done for him. Dad was back home working at the service station his parents owned when he met our mum Margaret, or Meg as he called her. Mum was nursing at Westmead's Children's Hospital at the time and sharing a flat with 3 other girls. When Dad turned up on the doorstep of their flat, 3 weeks after standing Mum's flatmate Mary up on a date, Mum was furious with him. When he declared that he was not in fact there to collect Mary, but was there to ask her out, she curtly delivered a few choice words and slammed the door in his face. Clearly, Dad saw that as a challenge because he pursued her until she finally relented. In Mum's words, he just kept turning up. On their first date, they went out for dinner. As it turned out, Mum was an apple strudel virgin. So Dad took her to a restaurant he knew that served the best apple strudel in Sydney. Mum wore a miniskirt and Dad spent the whole evening looking at her legs. They must have been pretty good legs too, because he popped the question 3 months later and they were married 3 months after that. People assumed Mum was expecting and waited for the imminent arrival of a baby, but this was no shotgun wedding. They were simply in love. Mum and Dad waited 3 years to start their family, and in the June of 1972, I arrived. When I was a few months old, they made the decision to move to Redcliffe in southeast Queensland to be closer to Mum's parents, my grandparents, Ian and Vi Fisher. Dad adored Ian and Vi. They were the parents he'd always wanted but never had. They took a while to warm to him, but they soon grew to love him as a son. Murray was born in 1973, and it was just the two of us until 1978 when Matt arrived. The early 70s were a memorable time for us all, celebrating birthdays and Christmases with large family gatherings, including our grandparents, aunts and uncles and cousins. Mum and Dad bought a 2-storey brick house in Clontarf, a few kilometres from our grandparents' place, and set about making it a home. During this time, Dad joined the Metropolitan Fire Brigade and met his lifelong friend, Peter Lowe, or Lowy. Together, Dad and Peter built a block fence and a large barbecue area in our backyard, and later they put a pool in. They became great mates, there for each other in hard times and glad, and their friendship remains strong to this day. It was a beautiful home, but those who know Dad would understand why suburban living was not his cup of tea. During the day, his loud voice and laughter would echo throughout our neighbourhood, and at night, he would wake the neighbours with his snoring. So in the late 70s, inspired by Dad's dream of owning a farm, Mum and Dad started looking to buy some land. The perfect property was found when Dad was perusing the real estate guide in the paper while Mum was in labour with Matthew. And rather than taking their new bouncing baby boy directly home, Mum and Dad threw Matt in the back seat of the car and drove the hour to Jimboomba to sign the papers. Farm life was in Dad's blood, and his enthusiasm was infectious. Mum grew to love the farm too, and within a few years we had cows, horses, pigs and over 100 chickens and ducks. We grew vegetables, processed our own meat, drank our own milk, ate our own eggs and made our own butter, cheese and bread. It was hard work, but it was a wonderful life. Dad would take steaks, sausages, large pork roasts and arms full of vegetables to cook up for the fireys on night shift, and people would fight over their milk and eggs. He shared a wonderful camaraderie with his colleagues and made some great friends during his 17 years service. Mum and Dad were also active in the small community of Jimboomba and joined the volunteer Bush Fire Brigade. By this time, Dad was a station officer in the MFB, and he shared the firefighting expertise with other volunteers during training sessions. In 1991, the same year Dad retired from the fire brigade and their first grandson Sam was born, Mum and Dad took their first real holiday since their honeymoon. Dad's sister Leslie was living at Port Arthur, working at the historic site, so they headed to Tasmania to visit her. Here he fell in love for only the second time in his life with the landscape and people of Tasmania. They returned home with a plan to retire to Tassie, and in 2001 they did. They built their final home set above the township of Boat Harbour Beach, 8 acres of prime farmland with a spectacular view, and they created a beautiful garden and a huge vegetable garden. Dad's love of Tassie was palpable, and he and Mum welcomed many visitors to their home during the next 24 years. Some Dad convinced to relocate. Others visited as frequently as they could. One after another, Murray, Matt and I moved to Tasmania to be closer to Mum and Dad as they aged. Family gatherings were punctuated by Dad's loud, booming voice, animated stories and everyone's laughter. It was hard for any of us to get a word in edgeways, but we didn't mind. We listened and laughed and went home thoroughly entertained, but quite exhausted. Dad had a saying, the trouble with being a parent, he'd say, is that by the time you're good at it, you're out of a job. Dad wasn't a perfect dad, but he was a loving dad. But for every regret he might have had as a father, he certainly made up for as a grandfather. With 2 dicky knees, he'd struggle to walk some days, but nothing would stop him from crawling around the floor with his grandchildren, playing matchbox cars or dollies, making loud engine noises and animated voices. He'd let the girls put hair clips in his hair and makeup on his face, and he'd always end the visit with a big bear hug and "I love you, mate," or "I love you, darling." At home, Dad spent most of his time in the vegetable garden, growing everything from strawberries to carrots, spuds and pumpkins. His tomatoes were to die for, and everyone knew it. He'd fill shopping bags until the handles strained and deliver them to the local doctor's surgery, chemist. Even the man at the tip got a bag. Making jams, preserves and pickles to use up the produce was a full-time job. And no matter how many times Mum begged him to only plant 3 zucchini plants next year, the obligatory 8 or 10 would go in. "We can always give them away," he'd say. Dad loved Christmas, and in his later years he volunteered his time at schools, daycare centres and community Christmas parties to play Santa. His white beard and loud booming voice and laugh had the kids convinced he was the real deal. You can imagine the restraint it would have taken him not to let the F-bomb drop in the middle of the local kindergarten. But he managed it. And by the time he'd left, he'd have the kids hyped up on sugar, singing Christmas carols. Mum and Dad's life became smaller as the years passed, and Mum's health waned. Family gatherings became harder, and they spent a majority of their time together. When Mum became unwell in 2021, we were forced to place her in Umina Park. This was hard for Dad. He missed her terribly, visited her every second day and phoned her twice every other day. When she regained her mobility, he brought Mum home to care for her himself. Though we all offered to help, Dad wouldn't leave the love of his life for longer than a few hours. And he was terrified that she would die before him. On the day they married, he had promised to love her until death, and he remained true to his marriage vows to the very end. We were so lucky to have a dad like Paul. I will always remember the way he choked back tears of pride every time he spoke of the achievements of his kids or grandkids. I will always miss the funny stories, his naughty jokes, his magnificent laugh. And most of all, I will miss his big, hairy embrace. I will always remember Dad's final hours, in significant pain, but apologising to the ambulance officers for swearing. A gentleman to the end. He was comforted by my promise to not leave his side, and his last words to me were, "I love you, men." I'd now like to invite my niece, Bree, forward to read the poem, "Death is Nothing at All."
It's called Death is Nothing at All by Henry Scott Holland. Death is nothing at all. It does not count. I have only slipped away into the next room. Nothing has happened. Everything remains exactly as it was. I am I, and you are you. And the old life that we live so fondly together is untouched, unchanged. Whatever we were to each other, that we are still. Call me by the old familiar name. Speak of me in the easy way which you always used. Put no difference into your tone. Wear no forced air of solemnity or sorrow. Laugh as we always used to laugh at the little jokes that we enjoyed together. Play, smile, think of me, pray for me. Let my name be ever the household word that it always was. Let it be spoken without an effort, without the ghost of a shadow upon it. Life means all that it ever meant. It is the same that it ever was. There is absolute and unbroken continuity. What is this death but a negligible accident? Why should I be out of mind because I'm out of sight? I am but waiting for you, for an interval, somewhere very near, just around the corner. All is well. Nothing is hurt, nothing is lost. One brief moment and all will be as it was before. How we shall laugh at the trouble of parting when we meet again.
What a beautiful choice of a poem. You can almost hear Paul saying that. Thank you, Nicole, for such a beautiful eulogy, a beautiful retelling of your father's life. An amazing man, and you have so many memories as a family and no doubt as friends of Paul's. We have the opportunity now, and a great privilege, to view a collection of photographs that depict aspects of Paul's life that Nicole has just told us about. The family have chosen two beautiful songs from Nat King Cole to accompany these, Smile and Unforgettable.
Smile, though your heart is aching. Smile even though it's breaking. When there are clouds in the sky, you'll get by. If you smile through your fear and sorrow, smile and maybe tomorrow you'll see the sun come shining through for you. Light up your face with gladness, hide every trace of sadness. Although a tear may be ever so near, that's the time you must keep on trying. Smile, what's the use of crying? You'll find that life is still worthwhile if you just smile. That's the time you must keep on trying. Smile, what's the use of crying? You'll find that life is still worthwhile if you just smile. Unforgettable, that's what you are. Unforgettable, though near or far. Like a song of love that clings to me. How the thought of you does things to me never before has someone been more unforgettable in every way. And forevermore, that's how you'll stay. That's why, darling, it's incredible that someone so unforgettable thinks that I am unforgettable too. Unforgettable in every way, and forevermore, that's how you'll stay. That's why, darling, it's incredible that someone so unforgettable thinks that I am unforgettable too.
Absolutely beautiful. What cherished memories you have. The love for you all was palpable through those photos. Nicole mentioned his love for our bush poets, but that his favourite poem came from a poet named Rudyard Kipling. His sister Leslie is going to present the poem If to us now. Thank you, Leslie.
I'm sure you mightn't see Paul and the family. I am so grateful that I made that choice, and so grateful to have had the opportunity of spending the last year closer to him and with him. I only wish it could have been longer. As kids growing up, pardon me, we had a plaque in our house with the poem If engraved on it. That poem always resonated with Paul, and that plaque now has pride of place in Paul's house. So, on behalf of my sisters and my young brother, who couldn't be here today, I'd like to share that poem with you. If you can keep your head when all about those about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. If you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too. If you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good or talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken twisted by knaves and made a trap for fools. Or watch the things you gave your life to broken and stoop down and build them up with worn-out tools. If you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it all on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings and never breathe a word of your loss. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they're gone, and so hold on when there's nothing in you except the will which says, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and, which is more, you'll be a man, my son.
Thank you, Leslie. Very wise man, Rudyard Kipling. Paul's sons, Murray and Matthew, would both like to present tributes. If you'd both like to come forward.
So forgive me if my eyes start leaking. I inherited that from my father. I just want to share some of my fondest memories of Dad, of Paul. I've known him as Dad, a bloke, or just the old man. I spent my first 6 years with Mum and Dad and in Redcliffe, where I was delivered by a rather strong stork in October 1973 to a 2-storey brick home in Waratah Drive, Clontarf. Upon unwrapping the rather heavy package, Dad immediately saw me and he said I had an uncanny resemblance to a cartoon character, Sluggo. So I looked up Sluggo. I never knew who he was, but turns out he was a young bloke from the wrong side of the tracks. So that coined my first nickname, and he always said nicknames are an Australian term of endearment. But apparently some paperwork came along later on demanding a more serious name, so they settled on Murray. But to Dad, I was always Sluggo, and later on in life, it was just Muzzer. I recall Dad helping me to learn to ride my first bike, running behind, holding my seat, and he built the pool which I pretty much lived in. Absolutely loved that pool. One of those photos was testament to that. Then there was the Fire Brigade Christmas picnics. As Dad was a member of the Queensland Fire Service, we often had picnics, and there was one particular opportunity where we were at Kemp Place, and I remember he let us climb the tower where they dried the hoses. And as a young boy, full of energy, loved to climb things, I was in paradise. We later moved to Jimboomba, where a 27-acre bush block awaited. I remember the day trips to the block, cooking lunch on an open fire, and later we'd rough it in the Besser Block shed that Dad and Loie built, which was absolutely freezing in the winter and boiling in the summer. But every evening, Dad had boiled the water for our baths in the gas copper, in the copper, and he also kindly constructed a long drop out the back for us. Clearing the land was on the agenda, and I loved tagging along with him as he cleared the path through the thick lantana undergrowth to a small creek at the back, which I spent too many hours as a young boy. And it's just big adventures, and I felt like we were just conquering a new world. I remember a camping trip with Dad and I. We bundled into the little Toyota Hiace, off on a fishing trip to the Condamine River, where we caught Murray cod on the open fire. And that was just father and son braving the elements. I remember the stress-free family road trips with Dad in the driver's seat, singing along with Richard Harris, Nat King Cole and other favourites. He really loved to sing, and he was a lovely tenor. He had a really good voice. When it was time to get my licence, I recall Dad, again patiently, teaching me to drive, and he also a lot of valued lessons in car maintenance. Then they moved to Tassie. So the next move was to Van Diemen's Land, getting, again, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity on a building block overlooking Bass Strait. Years later, I moved my family and my young family down to Tassie to be closer to Mum and Dad. Now retired and a grandfather, Dad 2.0, embraced the role as Pop. And cherished every minute he had with his grandchildren. Brielle, or Bree, Joshua, Joshman, and Bethany. Dad was a wealth of knowledge, helping me in many projects on many occasions. I often referred to him as the Boat Harbour branch of Coates Hire, and his hire rates were great. And sometimes, as things often do, didn't go right, I got some lessons in some foreign language. I still haven't worked out what that was. But some of my best memories of Dad are from this time. And now older and father myself, I better understand the challenges that life and fatherhood bring to the table, which made me love and admire him even more. So time to rest now, bloke, and I'll see you when the mud dries.
Okay, I'm not here to mourn his loss, I'm here to celebrate his life. You know, he was a great bloke, he was my father. I spent a lot of time with him. A lot of you are probably wondering why I'm wearing this outfit today. On the weekend, I was in my veggie garden doing what he enjoyed doing, on my hands and knees, amongst the beetroot, weeding them, contemplating my life with Dad. And I remember a conversation we had around when we were pre-planning a funeral a couple of years ago, I suppose now, and he's like, you know, when the time happens, I want people to wear bright colours, you know? So I looked down at my clobber I had on, and I went, hey, are these bright enough? They were. And also, he used to wear overalls a lot, you know, bib and brace overalls. So that's the reason why I'm dressed as I am today. Plus I wear these around the yard, and they were a bargain at Vinnie's when I picked them up. And the bonus was I didn't have to fight anyone over for them, because there was no one lining up to grab them. I can say one thing, being a father now, that fathers are important. You know, fathers are very important out there, and good ones are hard to come by. And I'm telling you now, we had both. We were lucky. We had a father and we had a good one, you know. So I'm very proud of that fact. Now, growing up in our household, it was interesting. We had a lot of good times. Jimboomba was a great place to grow up, little country town. We had a farm, milked cows, had pigs. And as young kids, we didn't have very many boundaries, you know. We had boundaries, we knew where they were, and we learnt them from the TV. And how did we learn them from the TV? Dad used to watch 60 Minutes, Four Corners, Current Affair, all those shows. And just seeing his reaction, we knew, shit, we won't go there, you know, because we just knew what his reaction was going to be. So that's how we learned our boundaries as kids, and it obviously worked because we all turned out to be decent humans, you know. We shared his values, we're quite outspoken, we laugh, we have good friends, and we just try and enjoy life. I remember growing up as a kid, Dad used to harp on to us kids and say, hey, when you're walking around, stand up straight, swing your arms when you walk, you know. If you shake someone's hand, look them in the eye, shake their hand, you know. Say your name, say their name. And as a young kid, I didn't think much of that. And then years down the track when I joined the army, I thought, shit, he must have been preparing me for the military. Because it's a similar thing. We did a lot together growing up. I was the youngest, obviously. I was always out in the yard with him, fencing, looking after the pigs. Later on in life, we did a lot of fishing, four-wheel driving, all that sort of stuff together. And I even worked in the same job as him at Committal for about 3 years, and we carpooled together. So I did spend a lot of time with my father over that time. And with that, and then after that, I joined the military, came back to Cedar Grove. We bought a house with my wife Helen, and from there we used to Skype nearly every night, you know, on the Skype, because I wanted to see my parents, particularly Mum and Dad, obviously, to see my children get raised. You know, I didn't want them to be in Tasmania, and for me to be up here, I wanted them to see the children grow up. So basically, every single day, they actually saw my kids grow up. And some of the funny stories that I can share with you. I just came back from a deployment in Afghanistan, and I was on my way back, and I got on the phone, and I was talking to Mum and Dad and told them when I was coming back from deployment. I'd been overseas for 8 months, and Mum was really keen to see her son come back from overseas, so she was planning to come up and basically be at our house the first day I arrived home. So I'd been away for 9 months, and then I heard the old man in the background going, "Piss off, Meg! He's been away for 8 months, he doesn't want us there, he wants to see Helen." And I said, "That's right, I want to see Helen." "You can come the next day. I'll be ready in 5 minutes." And then when we worked at Committal, there was another bloke down, I was talking to Kevin about it actually earlier. His name was Iraj Rahimi. He came from Iran. He was a refugee, came to Australia. And he had great respect for my father, obviously, because Dad was a bold character. But he used to say to him, you know, because Dad had a big beard, he said, if you were in Iran, you would command much respect with that beard, because his beard was so big and he was such a boisterous character. And as I said, it didn't matter who it was, he was loved by everyone. And later on, I just lost my train of thought there. And then another funny story, which I'll end on this one in particular, and this was probably the most recent. I was taking Dad to a specials appointment in at Launceston, and Saturday afternoon, 3 o'clock. And of course, I didn't know how long the appointment was going to go for, so I wandered around town, and then I came back and I'm waiting out the front, and like an hour's passed, and this old fella come wandering out, exasperated. He was like, "Oh, bloody hell," pointing his head. And he goes, "Are you waiting for the old man?" I said, "Yeah, matter of fact, I am." And he goes, "Well, he's been in there for an hour talking to the person behind the counter." And I went, "What the hell, I'm out here an hour." So I wandered in, And I said, Dad, what are you doing? Yeah, I'll just be 5 minutes. But as I said, there's a million stories, but probably not ones to share around here. But there's some of the ones that I'll share with you guys now. But saying that, as I said, it was a privilege for him to be my father, and we had a lot of good memories, and I'll never forget that. And knowing being a father now, I just want to try and be the best father I can be for my children, you know, so that they find memories when they grow up. Thank you.
Thank you, Murray and Matthew. You said earlier we had a father and we had a good one, and you definitely did. You're blessed. And your father had a great friend, Peter, and I invite Peter to come forward as well.
I don't know how we go with this. Anyway, let's try. First of all, I'd like to recognise Meg, because her sacrifice and her effort is absolutely commendable. So, no, I'll get through it. I'll go. It'll be right. I inherited these tears from Paul. Okay. And I'd also like to thank Nikki and Murray and Maddie and their families for the for the many years of welcoming myself and my wife and family and into their homes and into their lives at different times. So now I'll get into the big fella. I first met Paul when I joined the Brisbane Metropolitan Fire Brigade in 1974. So from 74 to now is a long time, so just sit there for a few hours, shut up and listen. No, look, when I went on shift, there's about 30 men on the shift in town, and I was quite out of my depth in a lot of ways, and here was this fella with a loud man, very loud, an extrovert. He was a rusted-on Labor man, and he was what I would class as a working-class intellectual, a walking encyclopedia. And all these people around there and passing their exams, and I got in. I was a builder and a bricklayer, and I got in on, I didn't even have to sit the exam. They just said, if you say you'll play football and you'll do work on the senior officers' own homes at cheap rates, you can get in. So that's how I got in. But Paul got in, he passed all his exams. Anyway, when he asked me to go and do work on his place, I thought, how's this going to work out? He's all those things and I'm none. I'm none of those. We're miles apart. But anyway, I thought I'd give it a go. So over the years, I discovered that we had massive amount in common, and it worked out, and here we are, over 50 years later, still good mates. But I'm going to get lost here, so just bear with me. A lot of the things have already been spoken about in different ways, but Paul would start off with what I used to call his belly laugh, and then over the years, or the days or weeks or months, you go from belly laugh to bear. You get a belly laugh and you get a bear hug. And then if you're really in a good place with them, you get your belly laugh, your bear hug and a kiss. And then later on, you'd get all of those, and then, I love you, mate, he'd say. So, but the memories I have no bad memories with Paul. If ever you're bored, him being a Labor man, all you have to do is say, what did you think about John Howard's policy? And just sit back and reel in the big fish. And, but no, look, it was good. He's the only man that I can say that I could do three things at once with him. I could like him, I could trust him, and I could love him. And I could do that for 50 years. So all I could say is everyone who has had something to do with him is very lucky. And so I say to you, Paul, go in peace, stay safe, and when you're at rest and at peace, save a place for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Always remember that grief is the price we pay for love. And where there is deep grief, there was deep love. And I know you'll cherish that. So this morning, ladies and gentlemen, we've had a special glimpse into the life of a wonderful man, loving and devoted to his family and friends, quick-witted and creative, in many ways larger than life. As we celebrate his life, we can take satisfaction that Paul has been and still is and always will be a part of our life. As you live your life, do so enriched for having known him. Look beyond the sadness of today and recall your happiest memories and cherish them always. It is now time for us to lay this dearly loved man to rest. Would you all please stand? Paul, go forth from this world knowing that you are loved beyond measure, that you will be missed more than words can say, that you will be remembered and cherished, and that love will never end. We will hold you close within us, and there you will remain, to be with us throughout our lives until we meet again. We give thanks for your life and for your 80 years of love, friendship, and the memories that we have. We now say farewell, and may you rest in peace. Thank you, Paul. Thank you for the good times. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you for your love and laughter. Thank you for simply being you. You have filled your niche and accomplished your tasks. You leave this world a richer place than you found it. With great respect, we bid you a final farewell. Continue your journey with the love of everyone here. You will live on in the hearts of everyone you touched and nurtured while you were on this earth. And so holding the thoughts of Paul in our hearts means for us that death ends a life, not a relationship. And so, Paul, we ask that you go now with all our love, as tenderly and reverently we yield your body to be cremated, earth to earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Paul, thank you for all that you were and all that you gave. And so now, with love, we shall leave you in peace, and with respect, we bid you a fond farewell.
No regrets. No, I will have no regrets. All the things that went wrong, for at the last I have learned to be strong. No regrets. No, I will have no regrets, for the grief doesn't last, it is gone. I've forgotten the past and the memories I had. I no longer desire both the good and the bad. I have flung in the fire, and I feel in my heart that the seed has been sown. It is something quite new. It's like nothing I've known. No.